Hello, everybody. We are Vision 33 going to present a demo for you today. I am Neil Grabarnik, Sage Intacct Sales Consultant, along with Matthew Frampton here, who is our Solutions Consultant. A quick overview for today, about just 5 minutes from me, 40 minutes from Matthew, and then some time for your questions. Before we move to the demo, just a little information about Vision 33. Selecting the right software is important, but the right partner is the real difference maker for your business. A few things Vision 33 brings to the table. Extensive support and industry experience. We have many longtime customers who rely on our partnership to support their business, and we're a leader in the Sage community. Implementation is just the beginning of your journey. Vision 33 is here for long-term support and customer care. Ultimately, it's our consistency, reliability, focus on excellent customer experiences, and leveraging our knowledge to help you transform accounting frustrations into success and strategic growth. And like Sage, Vision 33 is a global company, but we like to say we operate as a small business. Our main operations are in the US, Canada, and the UK, and we have certified consultants to serve you locally. And here's some of our excellent customers running Sage Intacct. They come from all over the spectrum, including nonprofit, SaaS, technology, professional services, and more. I'm sure most of you have done your initial research on Sage Intacct, but here are a few highlights. So as you can see, Sage Intacct supports several industries and offers industry-specific functionality. Vision 33's biggest customer footprint is on nonprofit, where we have approximately 35% of our client base. Building expertise in these verticals really helps us to guide our customers down the right path with their implementation, including your sector's best practices for reporting. And here's a quick snapshot of Sage's global reach. We have millions of customers worldwide who cut their close time by up to 70%. Here's another snapshot that shows Sage Intacct's global reach. We serve customers in 80 plus countries and in 130 plus functional currencies. And if you're interested in the underlying numbers, Sage Intacct is as secure as it gets. You no longer need to worry about backups, downtime, and costly upgrades. It just works all the time. And Sage Intacct isn't a solution that was retrofitted for the cloud. It's a cloud-native solution from its first line of code. It's an affordable, easy-to-use solution for finance teams that need only specialized finance tools. It's also a modular solution, which means you pay only for what you need now, and you can add more functionality when you need it. We call Sage Intacct a best-of-breed solution, and its open API makes it easy to seamlessly integrate with other best-of-breed solutions. And for integrations, Sage has what's called the Sage Intacct Marketplace, filled with pre-built integrations to other best-of-breed solutions for CRM, e-commerce, and so much more. And if the solution you want to integrate isn't on the Sage Intacct Marketplace, Vision 33 can build the integration for you with Saltbox, which is our exclusive cloud-based integration solution built by our automation and integration experts. And just a final word about Sage Intacct's embedded AI. While it's not built into our demo environment just yet, we want to introduce you to Sage Copilot. Basically, Sage Copilot is like getting a very smart productivity assistant. It gives you answers you can trust and tools for a smoother, faster month-end close. So be sure to ask your consultant about Sage Copilot when they follow up with you. And now I'll turn it over to Matthew for the demo. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. As Neil mentioned, my name is Matthew. I'm going to run you through our weekly demo of Sage Intacct today. Before we jump into some actual functionality, just a couple of notes about moving to a native cloud solution. First of all, if you currently have an on-prem solution, you are dealing with server costs, maintenance costs, other intangibles related to having an on-site server. So as soon as you come to Intacct, all of that is going to go away. Intacct is a native cloud solution built in the cloud. It is fully accessible through an internet browser. So that means you can access it anywhere, anytime from any system. Next would be updates to the solution. So I know with a lot of on-prem solutions, when an update is issued for that solution, the responsibility kind of lies with you to update that solution. So you're on the most up-to-date version. With Intacct, that will go away. Intacct updates automatically 4 times per year. It's a seamless update. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to click a button. You don't have to confirm anything. It just flows into the system automatically. It happens during your downtime, your off hours, so it won't make the solution unavailable. It won't make the solution slow. You'll still be able to get in and do work while the update is running or occurring, and it will not break any third-party integrations you may have. So it's such a seamless update that if it weren't for the home screen that I have highlighted here that tells me a little bit about release 3, you might not even notice it happened unless you jump into some configuration screens and notice the option to turn on some new functionalities. This is just some high level notes about the most recent release. If you want to see everything that has changed with the most recent release, you can click on read the release notes at the bottom here. That will open up a full table of contents for you. There's a nice highlight video that is nice and short. I like to watch this video with a coffee and make note of the functionalities that I think interest me the most, or that my ongoing projects could put to use, or that my previous clients could put to use. So that is a little bit about the releases. If you're interested when the releases are going to occur, you can click on the release calendar. That will let you know when each release this year is going to occur. And as we get closer to the 7th of November, you will notice that this calendar will update and provide the release dates for the calendar year of 2026. So with all that said, let's jump into some actual functionality. Now, Sage Intacct does a lot of things really, really well, like your core accounting modules from accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash management, and so on. And then if you need other modules, such as if you have inventory, you need the inventory control module, or you have a healthy amount of fixed assets and you want a fixed asset management module, you can build those modules on at any point in time. But if you don't have those things, you don't need to enable them and you won't incur any charges for them. But in addition to all of this, what Intact does really, really, really well, where it excels, in my opinion, and where it separates itself from a lot of the competition, comes from its financial reporting capabilities. Now, not just the financial reports that the system can build, because there are other systems out there that can build these reports and can kind of let you get to the same data that Intact will let you get to. But it's just how easy Intact makes it to do those things, to build those reports, to isolate the data that you need to isolate to do some analysis and make decisions. So that is where, in my opinion, it really separates itself. Now, what allows Sage to provide that power and that ease of power and to separate itself from the pack comes from what we call dimensions in Intact. Now, dimensions is kind of a specialized word, right? Not every system is going to have dimensions. So the way that I like to explain dimensions are there are a number of ways I say it. Don't focus too much on the name of the dimension, such as departments. If you don't have departments, that's fine. We can repurpose this dimension to be what you need it to be. But I talk about it like they're buckets of reporting. So if there are certain buckets that you need to be able to report on, they will become dimensions. Another way I like to explain it is if you are currently have a chart of accounts that has sub accounts after your core GL account number, that is because you have certain items or buckets that you need to report on. And the only way to isolate that data and report on it is to track it in a separate GL account. Well, within Intact, whatever those sub accounts are, they will come off of your core GL account number and they will be created as what we call dimensions. And they will give you all of the same power of having it in a separate GL account plus some more power. And probably the way I like to hammer it home is if you ever find yourself saying a sentence such as, I need to be able to report my revenue by X. I need to be able to see my gross margin by Y. I need to be able to see my operating expenses by Z. Whatever those variables are, those are what we will make as your dimensions. So the way Intact works is, like I said, if this company were operating in a chart of accounts that didn't have dimensions and they wanted to track their revenue and expenses across these 5 different departments, for every GL account that they want to track across these departments, they would actually need 5 GL accounts for every single GL account that you would need. They would need revenue type 1 dash 100, revenue type 1 dash 200, and then dash 300, 400, and 500. But in Intact, we take that need away and we put them in a separate list. So that's going to keep your chart of accounts to its core, nice and slim chart of accounts, too many accounts in your chart of accounts is nothing but trouble. We all know that. It causes coding errors. And as I said, it's going to provide you with all of the same functionality that you would have if these were tracked in separate GL accounts and more. So the way they work are as you're entering a transaction into Sage Intacct, you can tag the combination of a GL account plus any number of dimensions that you have deemed relevant or that you need to track across that GL account. So if we use my department dimension as the example, let's say I'm incurring a rent charge. I get a monthly bill for our office rent. And I want to allocate that rent out across my 5 different departments based on square footage or number of employees or anything that you need. We don't need 5 separate GL accounts. We need the one GL account. And then what we would do is at the line level, we would say this much of the rent is for the sales department. This much of the rent is for the services department. This much is for admin. This much is for marketing. And this much is for IT. Now, I show this transaction just to kind of get this idea across, but every time you enter in any transaction, you don't need to tag every dimensional value that's available. Like I could put in an AP bill in here and I can say that the entire cost I'm entering is related to a specific department and just have one line here. I just want to show how the dimensions allow you to get the same power as having sub accounts. And then we're going to look at how you get more power now in a moment. So this is the way that the dimensions will work. Now I could also tag other dimensions here. Like if we need to track rent across our projects and our departments, I could tag projects at my line level as well, or any other dimension that you have active in the system. And what that allows you to do is really easily isolate data and report on those dimensions. So the isolation of data, one example that I would like to show is if I'm running a GL detail report, but I'm doing some type of analysis on one of my departments, when I run this GL detail report, I can use filters to help isolate that specific dimension. So I can come down and say, I'm doing some analysis on my P&L accounts. I'm not going to worry about balance sheet for this, but I'm really curious about what's going on in my admin department. So by choosing my admin department when I run a general ledger detail report, when this report runs now, it is only going to show me journal entries that are related to my admin department. So I don't have to manually sort through a massive amount of data. I instantly get isolated data to that department. So if I were to drill into any transaction here, let's take this 9792.85. This is very likely part of a larger journal entry. It happens just not to be, just my luck because I said it, but you can see that it is the admin department tagged on that line level. And if I were to pick any other transaction in here, we'll take the payroll journal entry, the 37051. This is part of a larger journal entry. And you can see on this journal entry, there are transactions going to many different departments. But when we get down to the GL account that I drilled into, which looks like it was one of my liability accounts, you can see that to 20605, I have the 37051. I'm also going to get the 43550 and so on because they are related to the admin department as well. But it isolates that data for you, which is really, really nice. It really allows you to do some easy analysis and drive decision making. Now, when it comes to financial reports, you're going to get the same type of flexibility. I always like to come down to my profit and loss summary report here, and I'm going to run it once just in normal mode, and you're just going to see a fairly standard P&L here. We have our current month, we have our prior month with the variance, and then we have our full year. So maybe after looking at this report, you say, I would like to see my full year P&L, but I want to see how each of my different departments is operating. So we see that we have 2.526 million here as the net income. You will have a separate report ready to go that splits this out by department. And all you would have to do is run that exact same report, more or less. And when we run it now, we get an individual P&L for all of our different departments across the top. We have a total to the far right. And as you can see, the total column still reconciles to our net income that we've seen on the prior report. So we can rest assured that it is a fully reconciled report. So just a quick rundown on how the dimensions work. Now, of course, financial reports are fully drillable. So if I were to click on a dollar value down here, we'll take operating and maintenance expenses. That is going to drill me into my operating and maintenance expense GL accounts. It's just loading through here. So you'll see here we've drilled in, we have GL account 6400. We'll scroll down a little bit. We also have GL account 6410. We're also going to see GL account 6650. Down a little bit more, we see 6660. And that note, we also have 7,200. So we just see all the GL accounts that are in that group. Now, the reason we get that full group is because operating and maintenance expenses is a group of GL accounts. So if I expand this group, you will see that we get all of those different GL accounts that I just was able to drill into. Now, of course, after we drill in through one level, we can continue to drill backwards. So if I drill into my GL detail report and then I click on another dollar value, that is going to bring me back to a source transaction or a source journal entry. So the financial reports have plenty of drill down functionality as well, which is what we're all looking for. Without drill down functionality, I would have been lost when I worked as an accountant. So fantastic stuff there. Now, building off of the financial reports comes the dashboard functionality out of Intacct. Now, in your system, you can have as many dashboards as you need. You can see that I have quite a large amount of dashboards in my system, all categorized under different subheaders, just organized, just purely for organization. Now, these dashboards can be role-based, they can be user-based, they can be available to whoever you want them to be available to. Like the CFO dashboard would likely only be available to the CFO to view, maybe your director of finance, maybe your senior accountants, but your junior accountants or your HR staff or other people should not be able to come in and see this dashboard. And that is super easy to make happen. So taking a look at one of the dashboards, this is just a good example of a dashboard. Once it loads up here, we're going to see what is essentially a profit and loss as a line graph when it kicks in. So at the top here, we have what is more or less a profit and loss. So the top line is our revenue, the bottom line is our expenses, and the middle line is our net income in the orange. We then have some report cards or performance indicators. Report cards is kind of our nickname, internal nickname we've put on them, but we see our services revenue compared against our budget. We see our total revenue compared against the prior month, our labor costs versus the prior month, and other metrics. We've then got a horizontally stacked bar graph and a vertically stacked bar graph. We've got a pie graph, more performance indicators, more graphs, and so on. Now, there are some really cool things about these dashboards. First of all, they can be a little bit interactive. Like if I want to isolate my revenue line here, I can click on the key to my graph and I can take away the parts of my graph and add it back very, very quickly. So that's, you know, it's okay. It's not the most powerful thing, but it's pretty cool. If you want to see the underlying numbers behind each of the points of your graph, we can click on show data and that will actually instantly show you the financial numbers. And you can do that on any of these graphs, by the way. If we click show data, it's going to quickly show you the table. So that's really nice because we are doing some analysis. It's nice to see the trend, but at some point you're going to want to see the actual numbers. They are filterable. So if I wanted to run my dashboard for a particular dimension, I can use my filters here, just like on my GL detail report. But my favorite thing about them is that since they are derived from financial reports, they're going to maintain their drill down functionality. So if I hover over my revenue for October of 2019, I can see that it's 1.3 million. But if I want to see the details behind that, all I have to do is click on that dollar value. That is going to pop open the revenue portion of my P&L, and then I could continue to drill back. If I click on an expense dot in my graph, that is going to open up the expense portion of my P&L, and I can continue to drill back. And of course, if I click on a net income data point, that is going to open up my full P&L. So the drill down functionality here is really nice from the dashboards. So that's one example of a dashboard. We will go ahead and take a look at another dashboard very quickly. This one just being built a little bit differently. It's just structured differently. So this time we have our performance indicators at the top here. We've got a close through summary. So we can look at when our periods are closed through, kind of sporadic here in a demo environment, 2017 and 2024, but that is just from doing demos and clicking some random buttons. But if this were a live environment, you would be looking at this and very quickly understand that something is wrong. We should not be not closed all the way up here. But again, just a little example. We've got a P&L versus budget here. So we've got our actuals versus our budget. It has a little forecast column built in as well. We have got some more graphs, some more record screens, so I can see timesheets here that need to be approved and expense reports that need to be approved. There's just a wide array of things that you can put on these dashboards, and they can become very, very useful. So they can be data driven, like financial dashboards, such as the ones I've shown. I will show one more very, very quickly. I do like to show the month-end dashboard just because it gives a different idea of how you might leverage the dashboard functionality. And this dashboard is not a financial dashboard at all. It's a lot of information. So we've got a checklist for month-end close. So these are our month-end activities. We have assigned these month-end activities to particular users in our system. So rather than us having to go follow up with these users about these tasks at month end, they would actually be able to update this task list themselves, and then that would refresh on the dashboard. So if they're using the checklist as they should, I don't have to go follow up with them to get updates. They can provide them directly to me very quickly and easily, and it's easy to track. Again, we have our close through summary, and I'm sure that's popping out to you again that it's definitely something wrong there. We have some quick links into the functionalities that we need for our month end, such as reconciling our bank and opening or closing our sub ledgers. Again, we see some approval lists because, if we were about to close December of 2019, we would have to make sure that these items get approved before we close our month. Because if we close the month and then these try to get approved, that is when they try to post. And of course, you'll get a message that the month is closed, so nothing else can post. So just some nice reminders here. And then we've got some quick links into some month-end reports, such as our trial balance, our financial report, our GL detail, our vendor aging report, and so on. So just an idea of how you might leverage different dashboards to help with different needs and different tasks. Moving away from financial reporting and dashboards, I'd like to talk about the multi-entity, multi-currency management in Intacct. So if you're working under a corporate umbrella where there are multiple operating entities, I know with a lot of systems that if you're doing work in one of the entities and you want to do work in one of the others, it actually requires you to log out of the first entity and log back into another entity, which really doesn't take that long, but it just becomes really annoying. I've been there, I've had to do it. And it always just, made me sigh. I was like, I wish I could just access all my entities very quickly and easily. Well, in Intact, you can do that. So in the environment that I'm in right now, there are actually 8 different operating companies. They're all named as if they're just for the country that they're operating in, but they are meant to represent different operating companies. So if I want to do work in USA Company 1, I just click USA Company 1, and that has popped USA Company 1 open in a separate tab. If I say, oh, I meant to click on USA Company 2, I don't have to log out and log back in or do anything. I just click my drop down again and click USA Company 2, and it's going to open up USA Company 2 for me in a separate tab within my internet browser. So I could actually have all of my different entities open on separate tabs, and I could be working across them simultaneously, just moving through tabs. Now, me personally, I don't do this. I don't like having them all open in separate tabs. I don't know if I'm like a neat freak or it's just too much clutter for me, but it's so easy to switch between them that I don't see the need to have them all open in different tabs. If I'm in one company and I want to work in the other, it's just 2 clicks and then it pops it open. So I just don't feel the need. I don't know why I got access denied there. It's something I've never seen before. I'll have to look into that. Am I going to get that anywhere else here? Huh. I may need to refresh my environment by the look of this. Yeah, there we go. I just needed a little log out and log back in. So you can see there, then I can work across my entities very nice and easily. Now, a couple of advantages that come with this kind of setup. First of all, if you do have multiple entities, chances are you're likely doing some type of consolidation, consolidated reporting. So within Intact, you can see that all of these entities are operating. They're all operating in their own reporting currencies, their own functional currencies. So Australia produces their financial statements in Australian dollars. Canada produces their financials in Canadian dollars, and so on. US and USD, South Africa in the South African rand, and we have it there. If I need consolidated reporting at any point in time, I can create a set of consolidation books that will consolidate the financials for any number of these entities. I get to pick and choose them. It can be one of them, it can be 2 of them, it can be 3 of them, it can be all of them. And I can consolidate those financials into any currency in the world that I need to. With that consolidation, all of your elimination entries are going to happen automatically, and you'll get a nice view of your consolidated reports. While they're all operating in their own functional currencies, they all also can enter in multi-currency transactions. So, for instance, if I'm in the Canadian company and I have a vendor that bills me in US dollars, it's very quick and easy to do in here. I just choose my vendor. This vendor is in the United States. So the transaction currency comes through as US dollars. You can see the exchange rate date is today, and there's an exchange rate already here for me. I did not import any exchange rates into the system. You never need to. These flow in automatically from Oanda, and they are fully historical. So if I come down now and I say they billed me 2,500 US dollars, that is the transaction amount. The transaction currency is USD. When I enter that in, the system is then automatically going to show me what the equivalent of that based off this exchange rate is in Canadian dollars. So this is the amount that is actually going to hit my books, $3,454.75. Now, like I said, these are fully historical exchange rates, so much to the point that I could put my exchange rate date back 20 years, and the system will go back and refresh the exchange rate and show me what the exchange rate was at that point in time. I can also override this exchange rate if I want to. If I want to say the exchange rate is 3.25, you'll notice my base amount, my functional amount has gone up to a crazy dollar amount of $8,125. But generally, people don't have to touch these exchange rates. They are sourced from Oanda, just in case anyone can't understand what I'm saying with my wonderful Canadian slash Irish accent that you might pick out here. This is what I'm saying, Oanda, Oanda, a very trusted source for exchange rates. So this is where they flow from. On top of all of this, if I do put in a multi-currency transaction, when I go to pay this AP bill, the system will look at what the exchange rate was when the bill was entered into the system, what the exchange rate is when we make the payment for the bill, and it will automatically provide us with the currency exchange rate gain or loss when we record the payment. So that's a nice convenient piece there. And additionally, with this multi-currency setup, if we process any type of transaction that should produce an intercompany transaction, like a due to and due from transaction. An example of a few of those are like if we transfer money out of a bank account owned by one entity into a bank account owned by another. Or an example is if I'm in my Canadian entity and the expense that we incurred was in fact for this Canadian entity, but we end up paying this transaction out of a different bank account for whatever reason. Maybe we pay this out of a bank account that is owned by our US entity, US bank account 100. If we do that, if we use another entity's bank account, we would owe that separate entity money. We would have to pay them back. The journal entry should have a due to or due from. Well, a due to in the Canadian company, a due from in the US company, right? So if I do that, if I come in and I post this payment, I'm going to go ahead and hit pay now. And we say we're paying this. We can go ahead and hit save. The system is going to post that payment for us. And if we go look at the journal entry related to that payment, we are going to see that the intercompany transaction has already been posted. So if I come to my top level so that I can see both sides of the journal entry, and I come to a list of my journal entries, and we'll go to our cash disbursements journal, and we look at that journal entry, which is this one right here, which is posted as of today. So if we go ahead and look at this transaction, we will see that the due to, due from has happened for us automatically. So we see our payment on one side of the company, well, both sides really, and then we see the balancing entry for the due to and due from at the bottom. So a really nice system if you're dealing with multi-entities. Even if you don't have multi-currency or need consolidations, really, really good for multi-entity, like fantastic. But then if you do have consolidations and multi-currency, still a really, really good module. You just build on that little extra piece. So it's really great stuff. Moving away from multi-entity, multi-currency, and so on, I'm going to talk a little bit next about accounts payable and what we call the purchasing module. So just for reference, the purchasing module is more or less a more powerful AP module. But I don't like to just jump into the purchasing module because if you don't need that module, the accounts payable module out of Intacct is probably stronger than any other AP module I've ever used. The reason for that, there are a couple. First of all would be it does everything you expect an accounts payable module to do. Entering in a new accounts payable transaction is nice and easy. You can come in and you can look for your vendor. You can start typing out the vendor's name to find the vendor. You can put in the bill number. You can have default terms on vendors, so that'll default the due date for your aging reports. You can default the transaction currency based off the vendor. And unlike other systems, if you have a vendor that normally bills you in one currency, but sometimes bills you in another, you don't need separate vendors. So most times Magnolia here bills us in ZAR, which I think is a South African rand. But if sometimes they bill us in Canadian dollars or the Mexican peso or US dollars, we don't need separate vendors. We just change a selection here when we're entering the bill. You can use the same vendor. There are no issues with that. So a nice easy screen for entering your transactions. Now, a couple of things that make this module a little bit more powerful than other modules, AP modules I've seen. First of all, we can work in system approvals. So if you want your bills to go through an approval policy before they get posted, we can do that. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the purchasing module because it's better over there. But what I'm more referring to in the AP module is the ability to update your transactions if something changes. So I know with a lot of systems, like if I put this AP bill in and I've made an error on this, I can't touch it again. I can't change anything. I can't change the GL coding. I can't change the date. It's locked. Well, in Intact, that's not true. If something is in a state of posted, that's fine. It doesn't matter. We can still go into that bill. We can then click on edit once it loads through, and we can make any change that we need. So we can update the GL account that was tagged. We can change the amount because we haven't paid the vendor yet. We can change our dimensional values. We don't need to do a journal entry in order to update a keystroke error. But so some other systems do that as well. I know not all of them, but some do. But the functionality that I've seen in only Intact ever be able to do is even if a record is paid. So you see these records are paid. Normally, once a record is paid, you can't change anything on it. But if you think about it, why? Right? There are certain things that don't affect the vendor. So why is it we can't make those changes? Well, in Intact, we can. We would be able to come in and click on edit, and then we would have to find a reclassify button. Now, I think my batch for this specific bill is actually closed. So I'm going to come out and I'm going to find this one more time. And I'm going to try to open up this batch because I think this batch, if I look at this batch, I believe this batch is going to end up being closed. And that is why I can't do what I was trying to do there. I'm going to come to open up my summary. Let me see if I can find the record number related to this. Grab my record number here off this bill. 3953. I'll come back out to my summary. There it is right here though. Instead of wasting any more time because we do only have limited time. There is functionality where even if a bill is paid, you're able to make changes to that bill. You can change things that don't affect the vendor. So if I'm able to find one, I'm going to try grabbing this one here, although I think I'm going to run into the same problem I just had. If I were to come in and click edit on this, and it was just one of the ones that allows it to happen, there are certain things that don't. I would have a button at the top here that says reclassify. And what that would allow me to do is change things such as my GL account, the dimensions that are tagged. But I can't change the amount, and I would not be able to change anything related to the taxes because that does have an effect on the vendor. So even if a record is paid in Intact, you will be able to make changes on the majority of them. So that's a little on the accounts payable module. Now, jumping into the purchasing module, again, which is just a more powerful AP module. So if you want to have some type of procurement process in your accounts payable, within your accounts payable team, such as, having purchase requisitions that flow to purchase orders, and then you have flowing to a vendor invoice, and you're looking for things like a three-way match and a tracking of the documents. Intact allows you to have that workflow from start to finish, and it comes with some really convenient functionality. On top of all of that, you can put in-system approvals on any document within your workflow. And when I say any, it's not like any one, it's you can choose any document and have any approval workflow on it, basically. So I could put a workflow policy on my purchase requisitions. I could put a different workflow policy on my quotes and a different workflow policy on my travel authorizations. I could put another approval policy on my POs and a different one on my purchase order inventory and so on. Now, the way those approvals can be routed are a number of different ways. As you're entering in the transaction, I like to come to this screen to talk about them. So first of all, it can be based off the total dollar value of the document that gets entered. So you set the different levels. You can say level one is from 0 to 25,000, or level one can be 0 to 50,000, or 0 to 65,499. Like you choose the levels, and then it gets routed to people that have that level of a signing authority on their Intacct user. Now, those the value-based approvals, they can be progressive or they can be direct. So what I mean by that is if they're direct, if we were to put in a transaction here that is for a $125,000, and that falls under level 3 of our signing authorities, it would skip level 1, skip level 2, and go directly to a level 3 signer. If it is progressive approvals, then it would first go to a level 1 person. When the level 1 person approves it, it would move to level 2. When level 2 approves it, it would move to level 3. We can route the approvals directly to a specified individual along any step of this approval workflow. So we can say first go through a value approval, but after that, we want them to go to our CEO, Frank, for approval. But the most common routing of approvals that we see come from the dimensional values. So what I mean by that is certain dimensions in the system, the location dimension, the project dimension, and the department dimension, which is hiding on me here. I'm sure it's right in front of me. There it is. These three dimensions, they can all have managers assigned to each individual selection in this dropdown. So if we take the department as an example and we click view, we can see that the manager of the admin department is Nikki Tesla. So if I were to have departmental manager approvals on, and I were to put in this transaction and tag the admin department, the system is going to look up and see that I tagged department 300. It's then going to look up and see that the manager is Nikki, and it's going to route this automatically to Nikki for approval. And we can do the same thing using the project dimension or the location dimension. Now, as I mentioned, the approval policies in Intacct do not just have to be single step approvals. And to show that, what I mean by that, and just to kind of hammer home some of the things I just said, I'm going to come into my approval policy screen, and I'm just going to show you that on our purchase orders, we have an approval policy that says they're going directly to Emma for approval. But if we wanted to change this, we want to change this up. We say, you know what? First, we're going to go to the department manager approval. After it goes to the department manager approval, we're going to go to the location manager. After the location manager, we're going to go to the project manager. After that, we are going to go through a progressive value approval. And you can see what the limits that I've set in here for my different levels of approval. And after it goes through all of those, then we're going to send them out to Emma for approval. Now, I understand that this is very likely overkill. This would be a very tedious and bottleneck type approval policy. You'd never get through your procurement workflow. It's too many approvals, but I just want to show you the flexibility that you have. And of course, it doesn't have to be in this order, right? I can say actually first it's going to go to Emma, then it's going to go to the location manager, then it's going to go to the project manager, and so on. So you can pick and choose what way this is going to flow. Now, with all of that, you are going to get a really nice audit trail on both the progress of the documents in your workflow as well as the approval of progress. So to show that, I'm going to jump to, let's go to my purchase order list screen. And in here, we are going to see that I do have some transactions that are pending. I do have transactions that are declined. I have transactions that are partially converted, and I have transactions that are submitted. So what pending would mean is that this transaction has been entered into the system. It has gone through any approval policies that it had to go through. It has passed all those approval policies. And if we say receive an invoice for this purchase order, we can easily convert it into the invoice and connect those documents together. So let's check if there was an approval policy on this document. We can click on the history of that document, and we can see that it did in fact go through an approval policy. So we can click here and see what approval policy it went through. This went through just directly to Emma for approval. But you're actually going to notice over here that Emma didn't approve it. I actually approved it. I did this purposely just to show the flexibility that if Emma's out of office unexpectedly and she forgot to set up her delegations, you can set up what is called an unrestricted approver to ensure nothing gets stuck in a limbo within your approval policy. We're also going to get a nice three-way match. So if we take a look at a document that is converted, we are going to be able to see that this started as a purchase order. It then moved into a vendor invoice. So if you need a three-way match, you will always be able to see how far along a document has traveled. So if we look at this purchase order in particular, we can see that this did start as a purchase order and it was converted into a vendor invoice. So we only have a two-way match here because this transaction didn't require a purchase requisition. So a very strong procurement module here. Now, similar to our purchasing module, we do have our order entry module, which is essentially a more powerful AR module. It is more or less a mirror image of the purchasing module. Just on the sales side of your business, you're going to get all the same functionalities that you get out of the purchasing module, less the approvals. So just a nice way to have your sales workflow organized. Now, the functionality that people like most about the accounts receivable or order entry module in Intacct is the ability to send your invoices and your statements or late payment notices out to your clients directly through the system. So that can happen under either the order entry module, where you can see we can print or email our documents, or under the AR module, where we can send out our invoices, our customer statements, or our dunning notices. These are late payment notices. Intacct calls them dunning notices. So a quick example would be if I wanted to send out my invoices, I can come to print or email documents. I can set up some filters here and say I want to send out all my invoices or sales orders or whatever we want to send out for the whole year of 2019. I'm going to focus only on my sales invoices, but as you can see here, I can choose any document in my sales workflow to send out. I can click on view. The system is going to go out and find any documents that match the filtering parameters I said a moment ago, and I could send all of these out very quickly. I know you're not seeing email addresses here. That is just because it is a demo environment, but if you actually have emails attached to your customers, they would flow into these boxes and you can edit them on the fly as well. So really nice convenient feature for sending out your sales documents. And it does come with a full audit trail of the email. So you can ensure that your emails get delivered. And there are settings that you can set up in Intacct to make sure that these don't get marked as spam or blocked by your email server or the client's email server. So a nice strong module there. With all of that said, I'll clue it up by saying I just don't want anybody to leave this demo today thinking that they have seen all of Intacct. We have not even scratched the surface of what Intacct is capable of doing. We truly are really just glossing over the surface of what Intacct can do. The modules that I did show today, I showed very, very quickly. There's more functionality in those modules, along with modules that I didn't even get to talk about. So modules such as revenue recognition, contract management, inventory control, fixed asset management, and a wide list of modules available there. So we'll go ahead and open up the floor for questions, but taking a look at the Q&A, I don't see any questions coming in from anybody. So we'll give everybody back 5 minutes of their day, and I'll thank everybody for coming out and hope you have a great week.
Thanks, guys.
See you now.